The moment my plane wheels hit the runway, my phone vibrated with a message that nearly stopped my heartbeat. You know that feeling? That split second where your body reacts before your brain can even process the words? It was a physical blow. A punch to the gut that left me breathless in a cabin full of strangers unbuckling their seatbelts. I looked down. The screen was bright, cheerful, mocking me. It was from Melanie, my sister, my blood, the person I trusted to water the plants and check the mail while I was halfway across the world trying to help people who had nothing. Good news, it read. 2 words, followed by a string of exclamation points that looked like jagged teeth. I moved forward with the beach villa sail. We got the offer you wanted. The air in the cabin suddenly felt thin, recycled, suffocating. I stared at the pixels, waiting for them to rearrange themselves, waiting for the punchline. What offer? My thumbs hovered over the glass, shaking so hard I could barely type. I never approved a sale. I never even discussed a sale. That house wasn't just assets, it was Grandma's legacy. It was the only place on this earth where I felt safe. I didn't wait for the luggage. I couldn't. I left a suitcase full of medical supplies and 3 weeks of dirty clothes spinning on the carousel. I just ran. I ran through the terminal, my chest heaving, ignoring the customs agents giving me strange looks, ignoring the burning in my lungs. I needed to get there. I needed to see it. Because if I didn't see it, maybe it wasn't true. Maybe it was just a sick joke. Maybe she was drunk. But deep down in the pit of my stomach, where the intuition lives, I knew. I knew something Rod had taken hold. The drive to the coast usually takes an hour. I made it in 40 minutes. My hands were gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white, almost translucent. Every mile marker I passed felt like a countdown to a funeral. My phone kept buzzing. Melanie calling, probably wondering why I hadn't replied with a thank you or a great job. I threw the phone onto the passenger seat. I couldn't hear her voice. If I heard her voice, I might crash the car. I kept telling myself she wouldn't. She couldn't. We shared a bunk bed for 12 years. I held her hair back when she was sick. I paid her tuition when she flunked out the first time. You don't do this to family. You don't sell their sanctuary out from under them while they're saving lives in a war zone. But by the time I reached the coast, the denial died. It didn't just die, it was slaughtered. I turned the corner onto Ocean View Drive and I saw them. Strangers. They were walking through the front door. My front door. The door I painted teal 3 summers ago. They were walking through it like they owned the place. Like they belonged there. I slammed the brakes. The car skidded on the gravel, kicking up a cloud of dust that matched the chaos in my head. I didn't even kill the engine. I just threw the door open and marched toward them. The anger was rising now, hot and radioactive. It wasn't just confusion anymore, it was a violation. A woman in a blazer, a real estate agent, polished, smiling, fake, stepped out onto the porch. My porch. She looked at me like I was the intruder. Like I was the stain on her perfect picture. "Excuse me," she said. That tone. That condescending, "can I help you" tone. "This is a private viewing." Private viewing? My voice didn't sound like mine. It sounded scraped, raw. "I live here. This is my house. Get out." The couple behind her, the buyers, looking so innocent, so excited, froze. The agent's smile faltered, but only for a second. She pulled a clipboard tight against her chest, a shield against my reality. "I think there's a misunderstanding," she said, smooth as poison. "The sale closed yesterday. The keys were handed over this morning. I am Evelyn Ward," I spat the words out. "I am the owner, and I didn't sign anything." The agent's eyes widened just a fraction. She looked at her clipboard, then back at me. "You're Evelyn Ward? But the papers say you authorized everything." The closing was remote. We have the digital transcripts. The ground felt like it was tilting. Remote. Authorized. She authorized it. The husband chimed in, trying to be helpful, trying to make sense of a crazy woman on the lawn. "Your sister." She was very clear. "She said you were unreachable. She said you were in, what was it? Remote medical camps. She said you gave her power of attorney because you didn't want the stress of the property anymore." The world stopped. The sound of the ocean, the wind in the palms, the car engine idling behind me, it all just vanished. Remote medical camps. That wasn't a generic lie. That was a specific detail. That was a weaponized piece of truth. I was in remote medical camps. I was unreachable for days at a time. Melanie knew that. She knew exactly where I was. And she didn't use that information to worry about me. She didn't use it to send care packages. She used it as a smokescreen. She used my service, my passion, the thing I cared about most, as the cover story for a heist. She waited until I was out of signal range, until I was vulnerable, and then she struck. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't an accident. It was engineered. I looked at the house. I saw my grandmother's wind chimes still hanging by the window. I saw the buyers touching the railing, my railing. And I felt something snap inside me. A cable that had been holding me together for years, the cable labeled sister, just frayed and broke. "Get off my property," I whispered. Then I screamed it. "Get off my property." They scrambled. The agent threatened to call the police. I told her to go ahead. I wanted the police. I wanted the FBI. I wanted the entire world to see what had been done to me. But they just got in their cars and drove away, leaving me standing in the driveway of a house that wasn't mine anymore. I didn't go inside. I couldn't. If I went inside and saw my things packed in boxes, or worse, thrown away, I would have burned the place down. Instead, I got back in my car. I was shaking so hard I couldn't get the key in the ignition at first. I was covered in airport dust, sweat, and tears I refused to let fall. I didn't drive back to the city. I drove straight to the county recorder's office. I needed paper. I needed proof. I needed to see the lie in black and white. The clerk at the office was slow, agonizingly slow. She typed with one finger, humming a tune that made me want to scream. I stood at the counter, gripping the edge, watching the clock on the wall tick away the minutes of my life. "Here it is," she finally said, sliding a stack of warm, printed pages across the counter. "Deed transfer. Seller agreement. E-signature logs." I snatched them up. My eyes scanned the pages, hunting. And there it was. Evelyn Ward. Evelyn Ward. Evelyn Ward. My name. Everywhere. But it wasn't my hand. I stared at the signature on the final deed. It was loopy. Dramatic. It had a flourish at the end of the D that I hadn't used since high school. It was a caricature of my signature. It was what someone thought my signature looked like if they hadn't seen it in 10 years. And then I saw the witness line. The room spun. I actually had to grab the counter to keep from falling. Witness. Sarah Jenkins. Sarah Jenkins. My ex-best friend. The girl who spread rumors about me in college. The girl I cut out of my life a decade ago. The girl Melanie swore she hated because of what she did to me. Melanie had brought her back. She had dug up the ghosts of my past to help bury my future. They had done this together. My sister and my enemy, sitting around a kitchen table, practicing my name, laughing about how easy it was. How stupid I was. I could picture it. I could see them drinking wine, maybe using my own wine glasses, forging my life away while I was sleeping in a tent, swatting mosquitoes, trying to stitch up wounds. The rage that hit me then wasn't hot anymore. It was cold. It was ice. It was the kind of anger that doesn't scream, it plans. I took the papers. I didn't say thank you to the clerk. I walked out into the blinding sunlight, feeling like a different person than the one who had landed just a few hours ago. That Evelyn was hopeful. That Evelyn was tired but happy to be home. This Evelyn was a hunter. I drove to an attorney friend's office. I didn't call first. I just showed up. I must have looked insane. Hair wild, eyes bloodshot, clutching a sheaf of papers like a Bible. He gave me a name. A private investigator. A guy named Miller who used to be a fraud detective. I went straight there. I didn't stop for food. I didn't stop for water. I was fueled by pure, unadulterated adrenaline. Miller was an older guy, cynical, tired eyes. He took the papers from me without a word. He laid them out on his desk, pulling a magnifying glass from a drawer. He didn't ask me how I was feeling. He didn't offer me tea. He just looked at the ink. Minutes passed. The silence in that office was heavy, thick with the dust of other people's tragedies. Finally, he looked up. "This was planned," he said. His voice was gravel. "This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision, Ms. Ward. Someone rehearsed your handwriting. See the pressure points here? On the W? That's hesitant. That's someone trying to draw a picture of a letter not writing it naturally. He pointed to the digital logs. And here, the IP address for the remote notarization. It pings back to a cafe 3 blocks from the property. They weren't remote. They were right down the street. He looked at me, and for the first time, I saw pity in his eyes. I hated it. I didn't want pity. I wanted ammunition. Who did this? He asked, though I think he already knew. My sister, I said. The words tasted like ash. My sister stole my life. Miller nodded slowly. Then we need to prove it. Not just the signature. We need to prove the intent. We need to catch her in the lie before she knows you know. He handed me a card. Go to someone who knows you. Someone who knows your writing. Get a second opinion. Build the wall before you fire the cannon. I walked out of his office, and the sun was setting. The sky was bleeding purple and red, looking like a bruise. I got back in my car. I knew where I had to go. Tara. Tara was the only person left. The only one Melanie hadn't touched. The only one who knew the truth of us. I arrived at Tara's apartment building. I buzzed up, and when she answered, I couldn't even speak. I just breathed into the intercom. Ev, she asked, her voice tinny through the speaker. Ev, is that you? Let me in. I choked out. Please. When the door clicked open, I didn't run. I walked. I walked like I was carrying 100 pounds of lead on my back. When I got to her door, she was already standing there, eyes wide. She took one look at me, at the shaking hands, the wild eyes, and she pulled me inside. I didn't cry. I couldn't afford to cry. Not yet. I threw the papers on her coffee table. Look at them, I commanded. Just look. Tara sat down. She flipped through the deed. She looked at the signature. She looked at the date. She looked at the witness name. Her face went pale. This isn't you, she whispered. I know, I said. No, Evelyn, look. She pointed to the bottom of the page. The date, November 12th. You were in transit. You were on a layover in Dubai. I remember because we FaceTimed. You were complaining about the airport coffee. She grabbed her phone, scrolling frantically through our history. Here's the screenshot. Time-stamped. November 12th, 2 p.m. our time. She looked up at me, her eyes fierce. You couldn't have signed a physical document in a notary office in California while you were drinking a latte in Dubai. She didn't just cross a boundary, Tara said, her voice trembling with the same anger I felt. Ev, your sister didn't just cross a boundary. She built a whole bridge to get away with this. She engineered a reality where you didn't exist. I sat on the edge of Tara's couch, my head in my hands. The betrayal was settling in now, heavy and dark. It wasn't just the money. It wasn't just the house. It was the fact that Melanie looked at me, looked at my life, and decided it was hers to harvest. She looked at my trust and saw a weakness to be exploited. She thinks I'm stupid, I whispered. She thinks I'm just the nice, helpful sister who will roll over. She thinks I'll forgive her because family is everything. I stood up. I walked to the window and looked out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Melanie was probably celebrating. She was probably spending the money right now. Maybe paying off debt. Maybe buying new clothes. Maybe buying silence. She's coming here, I said. Tara looked up. What? I texted her, I lied. Or maybe I had planned to. I told her to meet me here. I told her I landed and I wanted to celebrate the good news. Tara stood up, ready to fight. You're going to confront her? Now. You've been awake for 30 hours. I don't care. I turned back to her. I want to see her face. I want to look her in the eye when the lie crumbles. I want to see the moment she realizes she didn't win. My phone buzzed again. It was Melanie. On my way. So excited to see you. XOXO. XOXO. Hugs and kisses. From the woman who knifed me in the back. I looked at Tara. She's on her way. The waiting was the hardest part. Every minute felt like an hour. Tara made coffee, but I couldn't drink it. My stomach was a knot of acid. I paced the small living room, rehearsing what I would say. But what do you say to a thief who shares your DNA? What do you say to a criminal who shares your childhood memories? When the knock finally came, the sound echoed like a gunshot. Tara went to the door. I stood in the shadows of the hallway out of sight. I wanted to hear her voice before she saw me. I wanted to hear the performance. Hey! Melanie's voice was high, bubbly, sickeningly sweet. Is she here? Is the traveler back? She breezed into the apartment, smelling of expensive perfume she probably bought with my money. She was wearing a new coat, a leather coat. I recognized the brand. It cost more than I made in a month. She's in the back, Tara said. Her voice was cold, but Melanie didn't notice. Melanie never noticed things that didn't revolve around her. Great! I brought champagne, Melanie shouted. We have so much to celebrate. I stepped out of the shadows. Melanie froze. The bottle of champagne in her hand dipped slightly. Ev, she squealed, recovering quickly. She took a step toward me, arms open for a hug. Oh my God, you look tired. But good. So good. I didn't move. I didn't smile. I just stared at her. I stared at the sister I loved. I stared at the monster she had become. Put the bottle down, Melanie, I said. My voice was deadly quiet. She paused, confused. What? Don't be silly. We sold the house. Do you know how much we got? It's amazing. I handled everything, just like. I didn't ask you to handle anything. I cut her off. Of course you did. She laughed, a nervous, tinkling sound. Before you left, you said, Mel, take care of it. You were so stressed. I did you a favor. I asked you to get repair estimates, I said, stepping closer. I asked you to call the plumber about the leak in the master bath. I didn't ask you to sell my inheritance. Melanie's smile faltered. Well, potato. The market was hot. I had to act fast. You were unreachable. I couldn't exactly call you in the jungle to ask for permission every step of the way. So you forged it. The room went silent. The air pressure dropped. Melanie blinked. Excuse me. You forged my signature, I said, pointing to the papers on the table. You used a fake ID. You used a witness who hates my guts. You committed fraud, Melanie. She laughed again, but this time it was high and brittle. Wow. Okay. Jet lag is making you crazy. Fraud. Really? I'm your sister. I was acting as your agent. Maybe I signed your name because you weren't there to do it, but it was for us. For the family. There is no us on the deed, I roared. The anger finally broke the dam. There is only me. It was at my house. Grandma left it to me. Because you were the favorite. Melanie screamed back, her mask slipping. The ugly, jealous face beneath finally showing through. You always got everything. The grades, the praise, the house. I got nothing. I'm drowning, Evelyn. I am drowning in debt, and you're off playing St. Evelyn of the Third World, sitting on a gold mine you don't even use. So you stole it. I borrowed against it, she lied. Then she caught herself. I sold it to save us. You're always gone saving strangers while your own family crumbles. I did this for our future. Don't you dare, I hissed. Don't you dare try to make this noble. You bought a leather coat, Melanie. I see it. You bought a new car. I saw the key fob in your hand. You didn't do this for the family. You did this for you. She backed up, hitting the edge of the table. Her eyes darted around the room, looking for an exit, looking for an ally. She looked at Tara. Tara, tell her, Melanie pleaded. Tell her she's overreacting. It's just a house. We can buy another one. Tara crossed her arms. She looked at Melanie with pure disgust. I saw the logs, Mel. I saw the Dubai timestamp. You're lying. Melanie flinched. She looked back at me, desperation creeping into her eyes. Okay, look. I messed up the paperwork. Maybe I cut a corner. But we can fix it. Just don't be dramatic. We don't need lawyers. We don't need. Her eyes landed on the table. On the business card sitting on top of the stack of forged deeds. Miller investigations. Fraud and asset recovery. Melanie's face went gray. All the color drained out of her skin instantly. She looked at the card, then at me. You hired a PI, she whispered. On me. I hired a PI to find out who stole my house, I said. I didn't know it was my sister until the evidence screamed it. Evelyn, please, she started to shake. You can't do this. These people, the people I owe, they aren't like us. The people you owe. I narrowed my eyes. What are you talking about? I owe money, she sobbed, the tears finally coming. But they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of terror. I owe dangerous people. Private lenders. Sharks. I was covering for Jason's gambling debts, and then he left, and they came after me. They said they'd hurt me, Ev. They said they'd break my legs. She fell to her knees, grasping at my jeans. I thought selling the house quietly would save both of us. I thought I could pay them off and then, I don't know, tell you later, or invest the rest and pay you back. I didn't think they'd check your signatures that closely. I thought I had more time. I looked down at her. My sister. The girl I taught to braid hair. The girl I shared secrets with in the dark. She was on her knees, confessing to a felony because her ex-boyfriend liked to play poker and she didn't have the spine to leave him. She sold my sanctuary to pay for a loser's bad luck. You thought you could sell my home quietly? I asked, my voice trembling. You thought I wouldn't notice strangers living in my house? I was going to tell you, she wailed. I just needed the money first. You needed the money more than you needed a sister, I said. The doorbell rang. Melanie froze. She looked at the door, terror in her eyes. Who is that? I didn't answer. I walked to the door. I knew who it was. I had texted Miller from the bathroom. I told him to send the cavalry. I opened the door. 2 men stood there. One in a suit, one in a uniform. A fraud investigator and a deputy sheriff. Evelyn Ward, the deputy asked. Yes, I said, stepping aside. We're here regarding a report of identity theft and grand larceny. Melanie scrambled up from the floor, wiping her face. No, wait. This is a mistake. This is a family disagreement. We're sisters. We can settle this ourselves. The deputy stepped into the room. The air felt heavy, final. Ma'am, forgery, identity theft, and property fraud do not fall under family matters. We have the digital notarization logs. We have the witness statement from a Miss Sarah Jenkins who claims you paid her $500 to sign a deed. Melanie gasped. She talked. Everybody talks when they're facing jail time, Melanie, I said from the corner. Melanie turned to me, her eyes wild. Evelyn, stop them. Tell them it's okay. I'm your sister. You can't let them take me. The deputy reached for his belt. The handcuffs rattled. That sound, metal on metal, it cut through the room like a knife. Ms. Ward, please turn around and place your hands behind your back. Evelyn, she screamed, reaching for me. Please, we'll fix it. I'll pay it back. Don't let them take me. I looked at her. I looked at the tears streaming down her face, the panic, the fear. And part of me, the old part, the big sister part, wanted to step in. Wanted to say, wait, let's talk. Wanted to save her like I always did. But then I thought about the text message. Good news. I thought about the strangers in my house. I thought about the medical camps, and how she used my goodness as a weapon against me. You didn't give me a choice, I said softly. You didn't give me a choice when you pretended to be me. You erased me, Mel. Now, you have to live with who you really are. The deputy clicked the cuffs onto her wrists. She wailed, a sound of pure despair. They led her out of the apartment. I watched from the doorway. I saw the neighbors peeking out of their doors, whispering. I saw Melanie being escorted down the hall, head hanging low, her leather coat looking ridiculous now, a costume for a life she couldn't afford. When the elevator doors closed, the silence rushed back in. Tara walked over and put a hand on my shoulder. She didn't say anything. She just squeezed. I was exhausted. My bones felt like glass. But for the first time since the plane landed, I could breathe. The storm wasn't over. I knew that. There would be court dates. There would be lawyers. There would be the messy, heartbreaking process of unwinding the sale and evicting the innocent buyers who thought they had found their dream home. But the lie was dead. The truth was out. And as I stood there, looking at the empty hallway, I realized something. I had lost a sister today, but I had kept myself. And that was the only inheritance that really mattered. The silence that follows a siren is the loudest sound in the world. After the police cars faded away, taking the flashing lights and the neighborhood spectacle with them, I was left in Tara's living room with a cold cup of coffee in a hollow chest. You'd think I would feel triumphant. I had caught the bad guy. I had stopped the theft. But there is no victory when the bad guy used to share your cereal bowl. There is no high-fiving when the thief is the person who held your hand at your mother's funeral. There was just mess. The next 6 months weren't a montage. Movies make it look easy. A gavel bangs, a montage plays, and suddenly everything is fixed. Real life is paperwork. Stacks of it. Mountains of it. I had to sue my own sister. Do you know what that feels like? To see Ward versus Ward on a legal docket? It feels like an autopsy of your childhood. And the buyers. God, the buyers. The couple I had screamed at on the lawn. Their names were Mark and Linda. They weren't villains. They were just people who wanted a view of the ocean. They had packed up their lives, sold their old condo and moved in. They had already painted the nursery pale yellow for a grandchild on the way. I had to sit in a deposition room across from them and watch their dreams dissolve because of what my sister did. I had to be the one to say, "I'm sorry, but you have to leave." The title insurance company refunded their money, eventually. But money doesn't pay for the feeling of being invaded. It doesn't pay for the humiliation of being evicted from a home you thought you owned. I hated Melanie for that almost as much as I hated her for what she did to me. She made me the villain in someone else's story. The criminal case was a slow, grinding humiliation. Melanie tried to plead not guilty at first. She tried to spin a story about miscommunication, about implied consent. But the digital trail was too deep. The PI, Miller, had done his job too well. We had the IP addresses. We had the forged notary logs. We had Sarah Jenkins, the witness, who rolled over on Melanie so fast it would have been funny if it weren't so pathetic. In the end, Melanie took a deal. I was there for the sentencing. I didn't want to go, but I had to. I needed to see the period put at the end of a sentence. She looked different in court, smaller. The expensive leather coat was gone, replaced by a cheap cardigan. Her hair was pulled back, showing the sharp angles of her face. She didn't look at me. Not once. She stared at the table while the judge read out the terms. Felony fraud. Restitution. 2 years of probation. Mandatory financial counseling. She avoided prison time. Barely. The judge went easy on her because it was a first offense and because the property was returned. But the felony record stuck. That stain is permanent. She can never work in finance again. She can never be a trustee. She can never hide who she is again. When the gavel came down, I didn't feel joy. I felt a heavy, dull relief. It was over. The bleeding had stopped. Now, I just had to deal with the scar. Getting the house back was strange. I walked in the day after Mark and Linda moved out. The house echoed. It smelled like cleaning supplies and someone else's laundry detergent. The nursery was still yellow. That hurt to look at. I walked through the empty rooms, trailing my hand along the walls. It felt like the house had been sick. It felt feverish, contaminated. I thought about selling it for real this time. Just listing it, taking the cash, and disappearing back to a medical camp in Sudan or Yemen. Just running away from the ghosts. But then I opened the back doors to the patio. The ocean air hit me. Salt, brine, and cold wind. I heard the waves crashing against the rocks below. I looked at the garden where my grandmother used to grow hydrangeas. No, I thought. They don't get to take this. If I sold it, Melanie won. If I sold it, the lie became the truth. So I got to work. I didn't just move back in, I reclaimed it. I scrubbed every inch of floorboards. I repainted the walls, covering the nursery yellow with a soft, tranquil sage. I threw out the furniture the buyers had left behind and brought in pieces that meant something, tables made of reclaimed wood, chairs that invited you to sit and breathe. I realized I didn't want this to just be a vacation home anymore. It felt selfish to keep all this peace to myself after so much chaos. I remember the text message Melanie had sent, mocking my work in the medical camps. Saving strangers. She meant it as an insult. I took it as an instruction. I used my savings, the money Melanie hadn't managed to get her hands on, and I converted the villa. I turned the guest wings into recovery suites. I partnered with a nonprofit I worked with abroad. We turned the house into a respite center for medical workers returning from crisis zones. Doctors, nurses, aid workers, people who had seen the worst of humanity and needed a place to remember the best of it. Grandma always wanted a full house. She wanted laughter and life. I think she would have liked this. By the 6-month mark, the house was alive again. But it was a different kind of life. It wasn't a party house. It was a healing house. And then came the evening of the visit. I knew she might come. She was barred from entering the property as a condition of her probation, but I knew Melanie. She couldn't resist seeing the aftermath. She needed to see if I had failed. Or maybe, she needed to see if I was happy. It was dusk. The sky was that bruised purple again, the same color it was the day I hired the PI. I was in the courtyard, deadheading the roses, when I saw a figure standing at the main gate. The gate is tall wrought iron. It's a boundary, a hard line between the sanctuary and the street. I walked toward her. My boots crunched on the gravel. The sound was loud in the quiet evening. Melanie was standing there, gripping the iron bars. She looked terrible. Not sick, just worn down. The shine was gone. The entitlement that used to radiate off her like heat waves had evaporated. She looked like a stranger who vaguely resembled someone I used to know. She saw me coming and straightened up, trying to summon a ghost of her old confidence. But it crumbled before I even reached the gate. "I can't let you in, Melanie," I said. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. The iron bars did the talking for me. "You know the terms." "I know," she said. Her voice was raspy. "I didn't come in. I wanted to see it." She looked past me, at the house glowing with warm amber light. She could hear the low murmur of voices from the patio, 2 nurses from Chicago sharing a bottle of wine. "It looks different," she said. "It is different," I replied. "It's safe now." She flinched at that, a small, physical reaction to the truth. She looked back at me, her eyes searching my face for something. Anger, maybe? Or love? I don't think she found either. I think she just found a wall. "I heard what you did with the place," she said softly. "A retreat? For your colleagues. For people who save lives," I corrected. "Not people who ruin them." She looked down at her shoes. They were scuffed. "I'm working," she said. "At a diner. In the next town over." "It's humbling." "Good," I said. "Humility was the one thing Grandma couldn't teach you. Maybe the diner will." She gripped the bars tighter. Her knuckles were white. "I miss you, Ev. I miss us. I miss before. You miss the version of me that let you get away with things," I said. "That person doesn't live here anymore. You evicted her when you forged her signature." Tears welled up in her eyes. Real tears this time. I couldn't tell. I didn't care to analyze them anymore. I was done being the detective of her emotions. "Is it ever going to be okay?" she asked. Her voice cracked. "Do you think, maybe one day, forgiveness is possible?" I looked at her. I looked at the sister who shared my bunk bed. I looked at the felon who sold my home. I let the question hang in the salt air for a long time. "Maybe," I said. The word tasted heavy. "Maybe one day. The universe is big, and time is long. But today, the answer is no." She nodded. She knew better than to push. She knew she had used up her lifetime supply of chances. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay." She stepped back from the gate. She wrapped her thin coat tighter around herself, protecting herself against the wind. "Goodbye, Evelyn." "Goodbye, Melanie." I watched her turn and walk away. She walked slowly, her shoulders hunched. She looked small against the backdrop of the darkening street. I watched until she rounded the corner and disappeared. I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel the urge to run after her. I felt anchored. I turned back to the house. The lights were golden and inviting. Laughter spilled out from the courtyard, genuine, healing laughter. The smell of jasmine and salt water filled my lungs. I walked back up the driveway. I touched the teal paint of the front door. My door. I stepped inside and turned the lock. The click was solid, heavy, final. It wasn't a lock to keep people out of fear. It was a lock to keep the peace in. I leaned my forehead against the cool wood of the door for just a second, listening to the house breathe around me. It was still standing. I was still standing. Some homes survive storms, hurricanes, floods, winds that tear the roof off. We rebuild them. We reinforce the foundations. But others have to survive the people who were supposed to protect them. And that is a much harder renovation. But we did it. I walked into the light of the living room, leaving the dark street, and my sister behind me.